right, this is another one of my rings. I'm going to start with what's going on in the new Iran-Iraq war. Sorry. See, I'm saying Iran-Iraq war because that's what we called the Forgotten War at the time. This is the Forgotten War now is the one that's happening in Europe, you know. The one we should actually be more interested in because it's actually happening on our own continent. Anyway, Kyiv was hit by the largest Russian drone attack of the war so far. Last Saturday. The attack lasted for 6 hours and 5 people, including an 11-year-old child, were injured, and there's damage of buildings around the city. Ukraine's Air Force informs us that it shot down 74 out of 75 of the drones. The timing of this attack was interesting, though. You know, how Hamas launched its attack on a Saturday, and then it starts messing around, not releasing hostages anymore on a Saturday. If you know when the Jewish Sabbath is, you'd understand that. But anyway, the attack the drone attack in Kyiv actually came on the day that the Ukrainians honour the millions of victims of the Holodomor, which is the famine that Joseph Stalin engineered in 32-33 to bend Ukraine to do what he wanted them to do. I was definitely he would be aware of that, so that's rather the timing of it. Is Putin taking a leaf out of Stalin's book? Who knows? They seem to be, the main strategy this winter is to attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure, so people have no electricity, no heat, etc. over the winter, so that the Ukrainian people suffer. That's called a war crime, by the way. Yes. A German government source says that two NATO powers are limiting arms deliveries to Ukraine. That's the US and Germany. Both Washington and Berlin have denied seeking to encourage Zelensky to start peace talks. What would have, well, if Trump was still president, Putin wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. So, I mean, what trouble was there during President Trump's presidency? You see, but they decided to get they preferred the sleepy, creepy child sniffer because they wanted stability. The stability of the system and the way of doing things that has failed considerably for decades. Now, there's a lot of anti-Semitism about, and there's been calls for a global intifada, and yesterday, probably today as well, they've been chanting Jews surrender. You can't tell me this is against Israel. It's against Jews. It's anti-Semitic. It's just off the question. I mean, they're already. They're saying, well, they won't look. They're claiming that what happened on October the 7th didn't happen, and basically, it's the same as they deny the Holocaust. And the shocking thing is they get away with this. You see, because if a white supremacist said there was no evidence, and so it's not really true, that black people were thrown off ships in the middle of the Atlantic and in chains and drowned in passage to America from Africa, they wouldn't get away with that. So I don't see how people can actually, well, I don't know about the Holocaust, I don't think it really happened kind of stuff, and get away with it. The Holocaust happened, and they claim, well, October 7th didn't happen, and denying it. I mean, we've seen, I don't understand how these people get away with it. Now, there's an interesting letter from Robert Crampton in the Times. He read it for this letter. I went on the march against anti-Semitism on Sunday afternoon in London. So did, estimates vary, somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 other people. But where were the left? Where were the left? Where were they? Where were the left? I speak as someone whose communist relatives not only participated in the Battle of Cable Street in 1936, but helped to organise the resistance to Oswald's fascist marching through the Jewish East End. This is a proper lefty. You know the left. If you're involved with Cable Street, you got good credential amongst the left. The left, it's all about breeding. You see, it really is. So he was there. Okay, so, but where were they then? Anyway, yet on Sunday I didn't see any Union or Labour banners. The theme of the march was one with which any reasonable person can easily agree. That's why I didn't see anyone from the Labour Party then, isn't it? The failure of the left to front up was humiliating, mystifying and spectacularly ill-judged. That's Robert Crampton in the Times. Right. Well, it's quite simple, really. The centrists and the moderates and the left have emboldened the extreme left, who are as nasty, who are as much fascists as the extreme right, where people who are central right and conservatives, traditional conservatives like myself, would always challenge the far right, the far right. Challenging fascism is quite not right or left, but we would challenge the far right. The Labour Party has spent decades not challenging the far left. This is why they ended up with a deconstructed Marxist anti-Semite as their leader. Keir Starmer can claim that he is a fan of Margaret Thatcher, just to see if he could get a few votes out of it. But no, because Margaret Thatcher stood up to the extreme right and the extreme left. Basically, the whole, they still talk about the far right, them on the left do, but basically the far right was destroyed by Margaret Thatcher. Basically, if Starmer is an admirer of Thatcher, then maybe he could destroy the far left. But then, basically, when his own MPs like Sultana and a few others, Aspinall, whatever, are going on anti-Semitist marches and being against pro-Palestinian marches where anti-Semitic slogans are being announced, it's a bit difficult. He won't even take the whip off such people, even though I think taking the whip off them isn't enough. I think they should be banned from the parliamentary estate because by supporting terrorists they're a threat to national security. I think we can talk about this all day, can't we? But we won't bother. And there's been many terrorists who have been captured by Israel, and they are not civilians, they are terrorists, and regardless of what the extreme left fascists say, they are terrorists, and they weren't stripped to their underwear to be humiliated. They were stripped of their underwear to make sure they weren't wearing suicide vests, etc., regardless of what nonsensical crap but the fascist left tried to tell us. That is reality, but they don't like reality. They like their conspiracy theories, and there's lots of them being said about them. And basically, when they actually, that they like using the word Israel instead of Jews, but they actually mean, when they actually say, when they start talking about rich bankers and stuff, they mean people with names like Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers. That's another way they hide it. They'll say banks or they'll say Israel, but what they actually, they're a bunch of anti-Semitic bastards, basically. Now, here, right, where am I? Yes, the Dean of Canterbury Cathedral. Because Canterbury Cathedral is short of cash at the moment, because nobody's interested in the woke CofE's brand of religion. Nobody really wants to go to nobody is interested. The people, all the members of the woke religion don't like Christianity. So. So why go to church? People might think you're a Christian or something. And so anyway. So basically, nobody who is not woke is going to go to the likes the woke CofE. So they're basically not many people are going. So the Dean of Canterbury Cathedral is he's having a silent disco, and it's not the only cathedral that's done this. I mean, there's quite a few. I think Salisbury had a art expedition, and basically, because nobody is interested in the CofE leadership's form of religion. They're deciding to use their buildings for cultural events. Anyway, let's get into this, shall we? Now, we have this is a situation. 50,000 of them, wow. Religious buildings are being closed. And the leaders who look after these religious buildings are calling for them to be used for cultural events. I'm not talking about the CofE now, I'm talking about what's happening in Iran. Yep. That's 10,000 close. The anti-hijab thing is going on in Iran, and now it's like 50,000 mosques have closed, 10,000 quite recently, and the leaders. It's a similar situation with what's happening with the CofE, isn't it? But the Iranian clerics seem to have come up with the same idea that those muppets like Mr. Welby and Mr. Cotterill and all them lot have decided, and to use them for cultural events. You see, they can use that word enrichment, lovely religious word. That's cultural enrichment. The interesting thing about Iran, you see, is that they're not going to the mosques anymore because a lot of people are converting to Christianity. There was some crackdowns in Iran earlier this year against Christians, especially those who are converting from Islam, but it hasn't stopped the number of conversions. The majority of Christians in Iran are Armenian Orthodox who are being persecuted in Azerbaijan at the moment. Right. 14% of adults in the United Kingdom have been advised by an NHS worker this year. This year, 14% of adults in the UK have been advised by an NHS worker to go private. 28% of British people have private healthcare. It would be a bloody lot higher than that if private healthcare wasn't so expensive. But people, and the NHS workers are actually advising people to take private healthcare. The reason for this is quite simple. The NHS management is absolute dogpile. The management structure with the managers put in by Tony Blair have absolutely ruined the NHS, and so people aren't getting treated, waiting for cancer, ages. You probably need a test for this. I'll fill in a form, says the nurse. Fill in the form, or the doctor, fill in the form. Get to the NHS managers. I don't know what they do with it, whether they eat it, shred it, or who knows. Basically, once it gets to the management won't. They just take the extortionate salaries off the government, and do nothing, because they have the philosophy that the health service would work a hell of a lot better without the patients. And this is where it's at. So we have 28% in this country got private. It would be, as I said, it would be higher if it wasn't so bloody expensive. And 14% of adults in this country have been advised by NHS workers to take it, to go private. Basically, yes, it should be the NHS do it, but as I said, the NHS management believes it would work better without patients. Right, that's that done. Now, the last story, yes, the Just Stop Oil process that decided to disrupt the orchestra and cause havoc by gluing themselves to the conductor's stand. See, they thought it was screwed on, so the security just it wasn't screwed on the floor, so the security people just picked it up, took them out and left them in a back room somewhere.